going to start this video by saying that I really like this device. It has great software with some exceptions, great hardware with some exceptions, but at $110, it's got a lot to live up to according to the competition. So can it compete? Let's find out. Let's quickly talk about Powkiddy, because there was a stage where we were really slamming them for kind of having no clue. You've got to kind of accept that they are on a roll. They had the RGB30, which is excellent, the RGB10 Max 3 now, which I really like. There was the X55, which was brilliant, the X28, which, some people didn't like it, but I loved it. Had a bit of a cult following, which was their Android device. There's a bunch of devices in a row, and I was slating them for saying they don't listen and they just reinvent the wheel every time. I made a video saying the Powkiddy problem. They keep reinventing the wheel. But they have been listening to YouTubers and to people on Reddit, commenters and all that. They've been listening. They've been crafting their devices according to what people want. I think listening to your people and tempering that with what you desire to make, I think is a winning formula, and Powkiddy are really onto something. The downside with Powkiddy is definitely, quality control issues. But before I get too ahead of myself, a quick word from my sponsor. PCBWare are giving stuff away again. They have a plugin that works directly with KiCad and their websites, which allows you to upload the specs of your electronics project directly to their websites. This makes ordering super convenient, but what this means for you is that they're running a competition. All you need to do is create a project with KiCad, submit it on their website, link in the description below. Their 10 top entries will get $100, a 4GB Raspberry Pi 5, and there are prizes for qualifying participation. So you can't lose. So get cracking, check that link below, and enter the competition. So I'm quickly going to summarize. I'll put it on the screen here. My standout features and my sort of critical issues. And my standout features, ergonomics. For such a small device to be so ergonomic, that's wonderful. HDMI output, it has HDMI output, so we can consoleize this device. So a very nice device to put by your TV, connect Bluetooth controllers and use it as a console. And you can stand it up like that. Jealous out the box. This is also going to go in the critical features, but Jealous is a very nice operating system. There are pros and cons to it, but they've got some little features in here that actually I really like. It has that excellent screen. I really love this screen. And the form factor is lovely for Game Boy Advance, a little bit of PSP gameplay, DS even. Really nice for that. Also, it's yellow. And then a little tweak that they've done in this Jealous operating system that I can't seem to get on my RGB30 is the fact that it's got a press the power button and it'll power down and save what you're busy with. And I tested this across PSP, RetroArch. It saves and shuts down and will open back up where you left off. This is kind of a game changer. I need to do a little bit of research and figure out how to put it on other Jealous operating systems. And that brings me on to my critical issues. If you are going to use Jealous, but don't update it. Kind of been put out to pasture. So Rochnix is the whole new big thing. So hopefully that works out, and I'm going to keep my eye on that. There is a version out already, but I want to first test it and see if it's okay. I think it's just Jealous, but now kind of carried on by some new people. This has downward firing speakers. Why, God, why? I don't know why they... Actually, I know with this one, there's no real estate for speakers in the front here, so they get a free pass. And the audio is pretty good. It's all right. The Dpad is not the best. That's putting it lightly. In the menu system, the Dpad actually is the worst. It just kind of jumps between menu items and that. It's really terrible. But you'll see in gameplay, not too bad. It's one of those things you get used to. And I'll put a link to Shane Craig's Dpad fix. Other thing that I really hate is very clicky start and select buttons. And the shoulder buttons are R1 and R1. Not as bad as the X55. I'm going to show a test. It has similar charging issues to the RGB30. You need to use the cable that was provided with it. I've got a whole bunch of cables here and I'm going to test it now to kind of confirm my thoughts on this. But basically, if it's completely discharged, if it dies, it's very finicky what cable you use. once it's got a bit of charge and it's running, it's not as finicky. So just keep it charged. That's the lesson for today, kids. This chipset, well documented, the 3535, I'll put the number on the screen, I can't even remember it now, but it does quite well with DS games. PlayStation will be fine. So anything from PlayStation down, it runs perfectly. So it's a really nice chipset. And, people have slated Powkiddy for just bringing out more and more devices with this chipset. But I do think it deserved a little bit of milking because I feel like Powkiddy have now perfected this sort of horizontal form factor for this chipset, I think. All right, so this test, the reason I use this one is because it's very sensitive. And you'll see if I rock the down, I'm pressing down, but I'm just wiggling it. My little man moves around incessantly. I can do my diagonal. You see, that's the thing. In gameplay, I can still do my diagonals. Any device that has Darkwing Duck out the box is the best device in the world. Okay, so Darkwing Duck is a bit more forgiving, and you'll see. Now, this is interesting because it actually is better than the RGB30, because here with the RGB30, he did still move a little bit, and the X55, he also did move a little bit. Here, I'm giving it a good wiggle, and he's not moving. So that's a good thing. This is this sort of in-between Power Blade and Darkwing Duck test. And let's see. Okay, yeah, you see, it's also very sensitive. That's really bad. That is a bad sign. But, okay, but the thing is, in gameplay, look, I can do my diagonals. You can fix this, like I said. And it's not the reason I'm trying to play this down is because I don't want it to be a deal breaker, because I think there's so many other redeeming qualities for this device. Sometimes I do go on about these little things because I feel like the device had nothing else going for it. And that, it's kind of the final straw for me, the fact that the Dpad doesn't work. But this device, it's got a lot going for it. There, I couldn't stop because he just keeps moving. But you might actually get better mileage out of the joystick. Yes, so I'm actually getting better gameplay out of the joystick. Actually, I haven't tried that. Just thought of it while I was making this video because I'm incredibly smart. Now, these action buttons, I haven't done a scrape test. Sometimes I sit by my desk and I press and press and press, but I haven't had a chance to do that with this. But there's quite a bit of movement in them. So they're not tight in the body, which is a good sign. They've got nice travel. Bit of a clackety-clack to them. Yeah, a little bit too clacky, but I do like them. So, that's the thing. They've got a nice membrane underneath them, and that makes them feel nice. The gameplay on this is very pleasant. I haven't got a little app on yet to show you the cardinal snapping, but in gameplay, in sort of real-world testing, they definitely are snapping to the cardinals. And like I mentioned, for a lower-end device like this, for instance, the RG35XXH, okay, a lot cheaper, but it also snaps to the cardinals. And that's nice for lower end systems. Like for instance, Contra, I actually found the joystick better. Here is my very scientific shake test. Absolutely atrocious. To give you an idea, what's one that I gave a hard time? Anyway, this is one of the ones I'm going to compare it to, is the RG35XXH. Quite bad. This is worse. So I gave this a hard time. This is even worse. And again, I want to sort of redeem this device and say that you can fix that just with a bit of electrical tape on the buttons on the inside. So that's something that I will fix. Might release it as a short on the channel. So just look out for that. All right, folks, you never asked for it. Here's a quick close-up of the screen. Now, the fact that you can see those CRT shaders, and if you can't see it on the screen, it just means that YouTube has failed you. But to my eye, I can see those CRT shaders. It looks really nice. Look at that pixel art on this game. Even stretched, it looks fantastic. Okay, a quick low light test. A note on the screen is that you're supposed to press select and up and down for brightness, and it just select and volume for brightness, and it just doesn't work. So you need to go into system settings and set the brightness. So we're going to set the brightness to 10 out of 10. So this isn't a fair, this is a studio light and it's holding its own. But let's quickly switch this off. And I think that the more important thing is it going to handle dark situations? If you look at my other light bleed tests, you will know that this is actually a little bit bright for low light test, playing in low lights with a loved one in the room. But it's not the end of the world. I think the Anbernic Arc was a really good low light device. Can't actually remember which one it was, but This is average. And now, one of the interesting things, and the reason why I say this got a lot of redeeming qualities, here's the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, and if you really look carefully, it's difficult. This is a very slightly smaller screen, and it's arguably not better. So even though this is a touch screen, and it is a lot brighter, so if that's important to you, then obviously this, and it's much more expensive. Just as a test to show, this kind of holds its own against a device that's double its price regarding the screen. You know, we kind of nitpicking here. And then my very scientific test, which I always do, as I love to call it crotch time. These are fairly tight jeans. It's pocketable. And then a useless test that I love to include in my videos because I love giving useless information. The Max 3, 227 grams, let's say. And the device that I am going to pit against this right at the end as the main competitor, the Trim UI Smart Pro. What did we say? 230? 227. 3 grams lighter. This is much bigger. Like I said, completely useless test. I've written here feeling in hand. Overall build quality rating out of 5. I think I gave the RG35XXH a 4.5 purely because the buttons rattled a bit, but other than that, it was near perfect. This I would give a 3.5. Actually a 3 because the Dpad is bad, the buttons rattle, the plastic is very brittle. So I would give it a 3 out of 5 in terms of build quality. Take that for what it is. And audio, I'm not going to do, we can do an audio test if you really want. Sheesh. So you might not notice that on YouTube, but this was far more muffled. So the speakers definitely are worse. And I mean, the speakers on the Trim UI Smart Pro are pretty bad. So these speakers are not fantastic. Again, I want to say in real world play, wasn't such a big deal. So I did a whole battery charging test here, but the reality is that I'm not having the same issues on this device as I did on the RGB30. So a lot of people are reporting problems with charging on the RGB30. This is pretty much the same device, but they have definitely changed something because all my cables work. I use this USB-C to USB-C cable. Didn't work, but this cable gives me trouble quite often. So in summary, I'm not having any problems when I discharge the device, also no problems. So this seems to be charging a lot easier than the RGB30. And I just want to mention those ergonomics again, because it's very unusual for a device of this size to have good ergonomics. This is good ergonomics because it's round, it's really nice to hold, but there's no grips on the back here. I mean, here's the RG351P, old now, but it's got that as grips. We've got the Retroid Pocket 2S, which has no grips. You have to buy the grips. RG35XXH, little rubber pads as grips. The only devices with grips are more expensive devices, the RG405V and the Anbinic Arc. So that is a very unique thing about this device, and it's a thing that will make every day with it a nice experience because you'll enjoy picking this up. To turn the device into a console, I tried my Xbox controller, didn't work, so switched to my 2.4 gigahertz 8-bit Do controller. That worked very well. What happened was, as soon as I plugged it in, it just popped up with the pairing settings, and so I just paired it. You just press the button that it tells you to, and it pairs the device. So that was really handy and worked straight away. Bluetooth's a little bit more tricky, just in the fact that you need to use your Powkiddy device to get into the settings. So you just, start settings, controller settings, get in there, get to where you have to pair the controller. Pair your controller, whatever the buttons are on your controller to start the pairing mode, then press pair your controller in the settings. It should just pick up automatically. It should just pair. That should be easy. Once that is done, then you need to go into control mapping. So you go in there, and then you're the same as a 2.4 gigahertz controller. You just press the corresponding buttons, it maps it, and then it maps it across the board. For some reason with the Xbox controller, it mapped it there. I could control the menus, but I couldn't control my games. And once I'd mapped the Xbox controller, the controls on my device didn't work. So it was a mess. So anyway, my 8-bit Do controllers work very well. And then aesthetics, it's yellow. I really like the fact that it's yellow. I've wanted a yellow device since the Retroid Pocket 2, and so I finally have a yellow device for my collection, and I really like it. And as I've mentioned, the curves are really nice to hold. It's symmetrical with the buttons. Everything is laid out in symmetry, which I really like. Everything's evenly spaced. So it just makes it a very attractive device and belies the fact that it comes from Powkiddy, if you know what I mean. Like it doesn't feel and it doesn't look like a cheap device, and it isn't really a cheap device. So aesthetically, it lives up to its price tag. So there's a tweaks menu, which I have mentioned already. So if you're going to tools and you go in here, there's tweaks. Now, that is pretty cool. One of the game changer features in this tweaks is the power button function. So like I mentioned when I was chatting to Crystal in the podcast coming out tomorrow, we spoke about how it's difficult for kids to shut these things down and it's not super user friendly. This fixes that. So this does what Onion OS and other devices that I really rave about. It does that now. If you press the power button once with this feature enabled, it powers down. So it fully powers down, but it saves where you were. So whether you're in a menu, whether you're in a game, it saves that spot and starts up exactly at that spot again. So you can press Y to suspend, A, quick power off. Y will just put it into sleep mode. It basically just switches off the screen. A will do quick power off, which is the one that I recommend, and then it will save wherever you were. It's a pretty cool feature that I think Jealous were working on and rolling out just before they shut down. And then just a comment about the games list is that there are no Mario games and no Pokemon games. So if you have some Mario ROMs, if you have some Pokemon ROMs, add them yourself. So the Retroid Pocket 4 is out of this league, but the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, if you can find it secondhand, could be a really good competitor to this because of the screen. This is a bigger, very slightly bigger screen, but this is a better device in almost every single way. So if you can find this secondhand, this is probably the deal to go for in comparison. For a new device, this Trim UI Smart Pro is $79 on GoGameGeek. That's discounting special deals that you might find elsewhere. This is an excellent competitor to this. Also does a little bit of PSP. There's a bunch of custom firmware. Stock firmware is looking better. As a competing device, this is like looking really good. So, that's why I say, as much as I love this, does it compete against the rest? Let's get to that conclusion. So the RP2S is a lovely competitor. Hardware is better. The screen is tiny. This was my top pick for 2024. A really excellent device. Lovely case, good battery life, great triggers, just all around a almost perfect device. So that is a good option, but it may be $100 on the Retroid website, but you're going to pay $40 for shipping to South Africa or wherever you are. It's going to be expensive. And you're going to pay import duties. Whereas this is all included in the shipping price. They have a deal with the postage in my country and maybe in your country as well. And so they just get it to you really quickly, efficiently, and cheaply. So that is a big deal. I just put the RG351P here because this was the Ultimate Game Boy Advance handheld, the Ultimate Game Boy Advance emulation handheld. I kind of want to give that throne to this now. Just as a Game Boy Advance device, it comes ready to roll with great filters on it already. Like this is, and if you really wanted to, you could just stretch it to the rest of the screen. So, this is just such a nice Game Boy Advance device. So this has dethroned this as the Game Boy Advance emulator, I think. Obviously, this is pixel to pixel. I don't know. Let's have an argument in the comments about that. And then the RGB30, I put this here because for all intents and purposes, this is an identical device in terms of the hardware. So everything feels the same and everything looks the same in terms of the controls, the buttons. They've just painted these buttons. These are clicky, the shoulder buttons. The Max 3 has the stacked shoulder buttons. The RGB30 has the side-by-side shoulder buttons, so that's a difference. But, they're very similar. This is just a square screen. This is a horizontal screen. And so these, if you like the whole idea of what Powkiddy are doing with these devices, these are the two you'll be choosing between. And this is $100 on Go Game Geek. This is $110. So are there any sort of glaring missteps with this device? The only thing I can mention is that the D-pad isn't great. So if that really bothers you, you may want to consider one of the other ones. The D-pad on the Trim UI Smart Pro is dome switches, which some people hate that, but it does negate all the issues with these membrane D-pads. It's got very clicky function buttons and shoulder buttons. That was something that someone mentioned in the comments on YouTube. But other than that, like I said, Powkiddy really are on a roll. And when you see that, you think they're doing this on purpose. It's not by accident anymore. And it is one of my top picks of 2024. Also, I don't know. And it's yellow. And it's yellow. It's yellow. Also, it's yellow. Also, it's yellow. Woohoo! And yellow. Shh.